Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com, and in this tutorial we're going to look at pop-up menus. So if I run my application here, what I'm going to do is I've got some data that I saved earlier, and I'm going to add a pop-up menu to this table, so I can right-click and delete rows from this table. Now actually the first thing I'll do is let's just add a accelerator to the import action in the menu, because it's gonna otherwise drive me a bit crazy continually selecting that menu item. So I'm going to go to import item, keystroke gets keystroke, and I'm going to set the accelerator to I with the control mass. So control I is now gonna import data. So if I run this and do control I can select my file here, and there we go. So pop-up menus are pretty similar to ordinary menus. Let's have a look at the table panel here. I'm going to give the table panel an instance of private, and instead of JMenu or menu bar, it's going to be JPopup menu, and this is, I'm going to call that pop-up, and this is going to be pretty similar to the stuff we looked at in the tutorial on menus. So in the constructor of table panel here, I'm going to say pop-up equals new JPopup menu, and I'm going to give that just one menu item. I'll say JMenu item, and I'll call this remove item equals new JMenu item, and let's say that will say delete row, because it's going to delete a row from my table, and I'll add that to the pop-up menu. So I'll say popup.add remove item. Now to show this menu item, all I've got to do is call popup.show basically. But there are a few complications here, because I want this pop-up to pop up when I right-click the table. So I'll go to the table and I'll say table.add mouse listener, and mouse listener, you can actually use like the mouse listener interface and do, for example, new mouse listener, or make the panel here implement mouse listener. But mouse listener has a lot of different methods that you need to implement, and we only really want the mouse clicked. So instead I'll use a class called mouse adapter, and here I'll say new mouse adapter, and mouse adapter is like a default implementation of mouse listener, except that you can just override the methods that you just need, rather than having to implement all of the mouse listener methods. So if I right click here and go to source, override implement methods, I can override the mouse pressed event. That should do the trick. Mouse pressed, and then here let's delete some of this slightly superfluous stuff. I only want to bring up the menu, the pop-up menu, if someone clicks the right mouse button. So I'm going to say if e.get button equals mouse event dot button 3, because the right button is button 3, even if you've only got 2 buttons on your mouse, because there could be a middle button. Then I'll say popup dot show. And now I want to show my, you'll notice here there's actually 2 deprecating methods that we don't use anymore, and there's this show one that we do use here. And the first argument to that is a reference to the component that the pop-up belongs to, which is going to be my table. And then after that we want to pass in the X and Y of where to actually show the menu, and that's going to be e.get x. So that's E is the mouse event, and getX is going to be the location where I right clicked, and let's say e.get y, get y like this. And now if I run this, and let's do Control I, that's the accelerator I added, import some data, and right click, then I get this delete row pop-up menu. And of course you can add submenus or whatever you like, more data items to that menu, just as you can with a normal menu. Now in the next tutorial we're going to look at selecting the rows in this table, and we're going to make it so that if you right click on a row it gets selected and you can then delete it. And join me again then. And there's just one thing that I want to very quickly mention here that I sort of omitted from the last tutorial on serialization, which is that in case you wonder what Eclipse often asks you if you want to add this serial version ID, and you only really need that on, well, you don't really need it anywhere, but it's good if you add it to, for example, my person here is serializable. So in the last tutorial we looked at saving that to a file and restoring it using serialization. And this serial version UID, what happens is if you save a class, an object to a file and then restore it using serialization, Java will check that the serial version UID matches, and it will throw an exception if it doesn't match. And if you don't implement it here and you serialize an object, it could be, apparently theoretically, that on different Java platforms, on different platforms I should say, the generated serial version UID behind the scenes won't match, so you could have a exception when you restore your serialized object, because Java will think it's a different kind of object even if it isn't. So basically the long and short of it is that if you're implementing serializable, probably best give this a serial version UID, and it doesn't have to be a huge number, it could be like 10 or whatever you like, but that's not crucial. I just thought I'd mention it. Okay, so as I say, in the next tutorial we're going to look at selecting rows in tables, so join me again then, and until next time, happy coding.